Hello, everyone. Hopefully everybody can hear me. I want to welcome you all to the first webinar of this year's series for the Higher Education Financial Wellness Summit. My name is Jimena Waco, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. I currently serve as a member for the advisory group for HEFWA, and I work as the assistant director at the Career Collaborative at Schuman College in beautiful Burlington, Vermont. I manage the Career Flagship Program, which is an out-of-the-classroom required curriculum for our students that focuses on personal finance and career positioning. We have a really exciting webinar today, but before we get started, I just wanted to mention a few things about our upcoming summit. So for those of you who might not know, this year's summit will be in Portland, Oregon. So Portland State University will be hosting us from July 15th through the 17th. And we have a great lineup of keynote speakers. If you haven't visited our website, I encourage you to go to hefwa.org and check out our keynote speakers, and we'll also be announcing our schedule soon next month. So we have one of the keynote is Sarah Newcomb. She's a behavioral economist, and she's done a lot of work integrating findings from behavioral science into tools for individuals and financial advisors. Another keynote is Mark Mitsu, who's the president of Portland Community College, and he's worked as well to advance President Obama's community college agenda through partnerships with numerous federal agencies and other national stakeholders. And we also have Eric Monday, and he currently serves as the Vice President for Finance and Administration at the University of Kentucky. And he's done a lot of work on student retention strategies, public and private university partnerships, and financial wellness of college students. So we're really excited to have this summit coming up, and we'll also have 2 days full of breakout sessions. And just personally speaking, I would say that the summit has an amazing group of people who just are really passionate about this work, and we all just join in once a year and we get to share what we're doing, our challenges and successes, and the energy is really great and inspiring. So we really hope to see you all there this year in Portland. Early bird registration is coming up though, so keep that in mind. Early bird registration ends March 30th. So for anybody who is interested in registering for the summit, you get that early bird. So before we get started with our webinar, I want to make sure that you know that you can just submit your questions along the way, and we'll try to record them all. And at the, we'll try to answer the questions as much as we can. And at the end, we'll also have a little bit of extra time for additional Q&As. But if we don't get to answer all the questions, we can make sure that we follow up afterwards. So without any further ado, I'm going to just hand it off to our presenters today. We have Phil Schuman and Kate Wehner from Indiana University, who are going to be sharing their work on improving the user experience in their financial wellness programming.
We should probably unmute ourselves as we do this. Yay! Everybody's on mute. Jimena, can you see our screen okay?
Yes, I can see your screen, and if other people can, I think it looks like yes. Other people are saying that they can all see your screen. So go ahead.
Fantastic. Well,
technology worked today.
Hey, good. It gets scared by you.
It's true.
So hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us for this webinar. So I am Phil Schuman, Director of Financial Literacy for Indiana University, and also the co-chair for the Higher Education Financial Wellness Summit.
And I'm Kate Wehner, Information Architect and Creative Strategist at Indiana University.
I should probably put
There we go.
We have a slide for
We
that.
do. We have a slide for that. My title changed since we made this presentation. It's kind of fun.
Oh, see, we forgot to update that.
I know we did. It's okay. So you go first.
Let me talk. So we're here to basically talk about some of the things that we've done with our financial literacy program here at Indiana University. Basically figuring out ways that we can make our content a little bit more engaging, jump it off the page, make it jump off the page a little bit more, if you will, and just get it to the point where we're not just spewing out financial information, but trying to do it in a way that catches students' attention, gets them the access to the information, at the appropriate times. And ultimately, that's a result of the partnership that we have with our IU communications team. So my part of this presentation is just going to be a lot of the stuff you've probably heard or know some parts about. Kate's going to fill in all the gaps that are much more interesting and a lot more fascinating. That's the reason why I'm presenting with you, because I'd like to hear what you're talking about. That's fair. So if you're not familiar with our program here at Indiana University, we're IU Money Smarts. So that is our branded name for our financial literacy program that serves all of our campuses. So not just our Bloomington campus, which is the main one if you're familiar with Indiana University, but we also have 7 other campuses spread across the state. And so we provide financial education services to all of those campuses. So basically, if I click the down arrow, the reason why we exist, some of the stats that we always use to highlight this, 53% of students said they'd make a change to borrowing if they can go through the process again. So basically this stat already to us screams that students are not informed when it comes to the financial decisions they're making when they come to college. 54% of students said they didn't bother to determine how much their student loan payment would be before taking out a loan.
That's terrifying.
This is really scary, and I will admit that I was a part of that culture when I went to college too. So to us, this also screamed, all right, there's an opportunity for us to come in and provide information to students that's really going to be beneficial for them and to start thinking about the dollars and cents as specifically as possible when it comes to their college costs. And then when students did actually attempt to estimate their loan payments, they were 15% more likely to say they'd make the same borrowing decisions. That's fine. They're 15% more likely to say they'd make the same borrowing decisions. But it also means that students are being pretty waffly about their financial decisions. And if we can provide them with that information that they need, well, then we're going to help them make that informed decision that we want them to make so they feel confident in whatever it is that they're doing. And so what do we do, and how do we approach this? So our job is to try and shift the culture around finances in higher education, as I'm sure it is for a lot of you at your campus too. So let's all be honest with ourselves. Finances are inherently boring. This is a dry subject. It is one that I'm going to guess a lot of us didn't think we'd ever end up in, especially like the financial aid or the financial education piece of the world. Like, this is about as dry and boring as it gets, at least in terms of the subject matter. But what we do know is that we have the opportunity to be a little bit more creative with it and to provide a little bit more personality with it, because this can be a serious topic, but it doesn't have to be taken seriously. And what we also want to do is we want to focus on both financial literacy and wellness. So obviously, we're a part of the Higher Education Financial Wellness Summit. And in that regard, what we're focusing on is not just the nuts and bolts of finances, but what they also do to a person holistically. So we want to make sure we're educating students both to the point of, they understand what's going on with their finances, but they also understand what their finances are doing to them and how their decisions are impacting them. And then we also, we provide programming to engage students with financial information. At the end of the day, that is our job. And so that's what we're trying to do here. Also, Jimena wanted me to mention that if you have any questions, to submit them through the chat down at the bottom. We'll get to those as we go along. Jimena, feel free to chime in as we do this too. But yeah, so we provide programming to engage students with financial information. And ultimately what we want to do is we want to try and reach them at the appropriate times with this information. Because ultimately, as I mentioned earlier, it's about helping students make informed financial decisions. Now, you'll also notice that we didn't say help students make good informed financial decisions, because, yeah, we want them to make good decisions, but at the end of the day, our job is to help them figure out, or at least to get them to the point where they have conscious awareness of the decisions that they're making. If they choose to make a bad choice, that's fine. We just want them to be aware of the decisions that they're making. And hopefully, when all is said and done, that they will be making the right decisions. And ultimately, too, and I think a lot of us know this, the impact on the information that we provide is about timing. So NIFI pointed out research they did a while back that financial education is more effective when material closely precedes a financial decision, which makes sense. A lot of us have probably heard about just-in-time education. That's what this is all about. We want to try and reach students at the times when they're getting ready to make financial decisions. So at IU, what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring that content to where students are. So via social media, websites, and even some of the buses that travel around campus, we are trying to provide them with this information and the marketing at the right time so that they know we're available in case they have any questions about upcoming decisions that they have. And so since 2012, we have had a 17% reduction in student borrowing, or about $112.8 million across all of our campuses. Now, I will go on the record to say that I know our office is not solely responsible for this decrease.
It's not.
It's not. But we're certainly a part of it.
Of course.
And communication is a part of it. And our registrar is a part of it. Our financial aid office is a part of it. This is a system-wide effort to get students to be making good financial decisions. And we're focused on doing whatever we possibly can to get students to that point. But obviously, we are very happy with the results that we've had thus far.
So I guess this is where I talk.
If you want me to talk about what it is you do, that's fine, but I don't think that's going to go over too well.
So as Phil mentioned, I'm a part of IU Communications, and essentially that is the in-house marketing and communications agency for Indiana University, which is a little bit of a weird thing because we're an agency model. We have clients just like any other, private sector agency, except our only clients are different aspects of Indiana University, which makes it really cool because we get to be complete experts at Indiana University and all of its various interesting facets. And I'm lucky enough to have Money Smart be one of the people that I work very, very closely with. And come on, you guys are fun.
So nice.
You guys are fun. So we get to do a lot of things, of course, and most, if not, I think probably all of these things we do for Money Smart. So we do print design, we do email marketing, we do writing and social media, websites, photography, video, pretty much anything you can imagine. Bus wraps, we'll get to that in just a second.
You haven't taken any videos of us, and that's probably that's for the best.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
We do a lot of graphics instead, I suppose, for Money Smarts, which means that we get to look at the big picture of all of the things that Money Smarts is doing, all of the ways in which it's delivering content to students, and making sure that it's as strategic as absolutely possible so that you're as efficient as possible. So, of course, we do these things for Money Smarts, but really the biggest key factor in all of this is user experience, which we will learn more about in just a second. So what is user experience? This is the only wall of text you'll get today, so bear with me for a second, but this is, I think, super important. So user experience encompasses all aspects of the end user's interaction with the company, i.e. Indiana University or Money Smarts, its services and its products, which is knowledge in a way. So really what it comes down to is it easy for people to interact with? Is it easy to use? Is it easy to make an appointment? Is it easy to get the information that they're looking for? So overall, the first requirement is to meet the needs of a customer, right, without getting in their way in any sense. And then simplicity, elegance, fun, any of those things go layer on top of that user experience, so that whether you're talking about a product that's a joy to own or a website that's a joy to use, we hope that's the case, and making sure that you're going beyond giving people what they say that they need, going beyond a checklist, and really anticipating what the user's needs are so that they have a good experience. How about that? And this also, of course, incorporates, not just digital, because that's where user experience is most commonly used, but also in things like physical spaces, in things like, customer service, someone's waiting in line, anything else along those lines can all be applied to the term user experience and how it interfaces with engineering and marketing and all of those different kind of areas as well. Do we want to show them?
We're going to give the video a shot. We have about a 2/3 success rate with this
all right.
video webinar.
Well,
so
let's try it.
We'll see what happens. So
okay.
here.
Do we need to share the different screen?
We're going to go over to the side. Hopefully everybody can see it.
I don't think. I think you just shared your window and it's still.
Jimena, can we see it?
Yes.
No.
I'm pretty sure we can see what you want to show us. Is that a video?
Yes, it is.
Yes, we're about to click on this guy's nose.
Perfect.
Okay, great.
And hopefully the audio will come through too.
I hope so.
Hi, I'm Angie Lee, and I'm here at the UX conference in San Francisco. I got to ask Don Norman what he thinks about the term UX.
Once upon a time, a very long time ago, I was at Apple. And we said the experience of using these computers is weak. The experience, when you first discover it, when you see it in the store, when you buy it, when you can't fit it into the car. So this great big box doesn't fit into the car. And when you finally do get it home, opening the box up and, it looks scary. I don't know if I dare put this computer together. All of that is user experience. It's everything that touches upon your experience with the product. And it may not even be near the product. It may be when you're telling somebody else about it. That's what we meant when we devised the term user experience and set up what we called the user experience architect's office at Apple to try to enhance things. Now, Apple was already pretty good, so we were starting with a good product, making it even better. Today, that term has been horribly misused. It's used by people to say, I'm a user experience designer. I design websites or I design apps. And they have no clues to what they're doing. And they think the experience is that simple device, the website or the app or who knows what. No, it's everything. It's the way you experience the world. It's the way you experience your life. It's the way you experience a service. Or, an app or a computer system, but it's a system. It's everything. Got it?
I love him.
I want him to be my granddad. I'm not gonna lie.
So, he truly highlighted the fact that this is a holistic thing. And this is kind of the way that we've approached Money Smarts, in that it's not just one particular thing that someone is interacting with. It's a whole, there are multiple touch points along their experience as a student at Indiana University, and there are all different ways in which they can interface with you all, and making sure that all of that is really thoughtfully done. So in terms of some of the things that we've worked on, why does this actually matter? We want people to actually be engaged, and without a good user experience, students are much less likely to engage with Money Smarts or anything. If you are frustrated in trying to find out, how to make an appointment or how to find information about how you can make better decisions about your student loans or whatever the topic might be, a student is much less likely to access that information. That's something that we can tell immediately with things like Google Analytics and how the websites are performing and all of those types of things. And so having a good user experience means that you're not going to be sending people away on accident. No one wants that. So a few examples of some things that we've done with Money Smarts. So this was the bus wrap last year. Was it last year and 2 years ago? 2 years ago. Oh my gosh.
I know, we're there now.
It's insane.
That's how out of date Miley Cyrus is.
It's true. This is the Money Smarts pig on the wrecking ball and the debt monster gobbling people up as they're entering the bus as it's going around campus. So this is 2 years ago, the bus wrap that we did. And then this is the one that's out right now.
It's currently going. It has been in 2 wrecks this year.
The bus has?
The bus has been in 2 wrecks this year. Neither time it was its own fault.
Oh,
but it's had to have been repaired twice.
Really? I didn't tell you this. So we did a little awareness thing where in our office we were tallying how many times people had seen the different buses or been aware of the different buses that we've designed, because my office designs a ton of different bus wraps that are going across campus. And yours is the most recognizable by no small margin, because this is memorable. You see a pig spider superhero fighting a debt monster. And who isn't going to remember that and understand that they can do something about their debt?
Yeah, and even the standpoint, obviously the website that's on the second page, the go.ie.edu/money, like that's not our website. It redirects it to the website, but it's much easier just to tell people to type in that address than trying to get them to remember money smarts or anything like that. Like it's all carefully plotted out.
Yes, it is.
Not
Very,
by
very
me.
carefully.
with good reason.
And so here's some other things, some other materials that we've done. I can't claim any of this creativity. This is done by someone who does a really phenomenal job with illustration. And obviously the cultural references are much more likely to connect with students than just talking about debt.
Yep.
Very broadly. So.
And it was an interesting thing too with the middle one, extra AF. If you're not familiar with AF, you can probably figure it out why we couldn't type that out in full. But for us, it was kind of interesting because we had some people come to us and be like, can you guys really do that? And I think for us, the standpoint is, well, we want to make sure, obviously we don't want to do anything that's culturally insensitive. We don't want to do anything that's over the top. But at the same time, we want to make sure that our marketing materials reflect the attitudes, the behaviors of our students. And we feel like that's pretty good because, as we found out, a lot of students understood what we were saying as a result of it.
Yeah.
I myself had to be educated on the lingo because I am an old man at heart. But at the same time, once I figured it out, it made a lot of sense, for us to do that and not to like scale back and be, no, we can't do this because
be dry and boring.
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the really great things about you and your approach is that you're willing to take some, and not scary risks, but you're willing to experiment and see what connects with students. And of course, we've done research and things to back it up and make sure that this is effective, and it is, but without trying it, you can't find out if it's going to be effective.
Right. And
so that's been one of the reasons it's been so great. So here's some more examples. Of course, defeat debt, you will. And the new Avengers movie is coming out, so these are still completely relevant with all of the Marvel superheroes.
Those aren't going away.
No, they're sure not.
But as I said from the moment we started, I'm more of an Archie guy. I never got into the Marvel stuff. Wow. So
I'll keep you up to date on it.
As long as we can get Jughead, Veronica, Mr. Weatherby in there at some point.
See, I have no idea what that means.
Exactly.
So we also want to show you the difference in the website. So when was our launch date? It was like August? August?
October 24th, 2017.
Oh my gosh, your memory is great. I'm like all fuzzy. But we have, of course, the Wayback Machine does a really, actually we have a true old version of the site.
Yeah,
so
we're
let's pull it up on this.
Pull it over here.
Screen over here. So this is what it looked like. And there's nothing particularly wrong about this. It gave lots of information. You had some quizzes back then and information about your courses, the blog that you decided to abandon because it was too much work for you. It's just a lot of upkeep.
Self-preservation.
Yeah. I mean, and like I said, there's nothing wrong about this. And this is the 2017
Summit.
Financial Wellness Summit before we launched the new site. It's still there. So this was fine. It served your needs pretty well for years. But then
there were a couple things with it too. We looked at it. Number one, the university made a push to try and get everybody on the same branding, which you'll see with our new design here. But then also too, it's one of those things where we were fine with what the website looked like at the time, but we also knew that we needed to move it into a more updated direction and get people to come back to the website.
Absolutely.
The one thing that and I think my staff hates me for this is, we can't just be stagnant in the things that we do.
You can't rest on your laurels.
No, we have to keep moving. We have to keep figuring out new things that we can do so we can stay relevant.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's really important for us.
Yeah, sure. And look how nice it looks on mobile. I call this the squish test, right? So you make the screen smaller and then you see what it looks like. So it all scales extremely well.
Well, you guys build mobile first.
Yeah,
right?
we do, absolutely. It's responsive web design, which means that any device size you use it on, it will scale and just be lovely. And in fact, we think about that not just in terms of the design, but also the content, right? So we break things up into much more small, digestible pieces. Instead of, you're not going to get walls of text on this website at all. It's going to be very digestible, very easy to read, etc.
Which some people might even think that the amount of text we have here is a lot too. But I think because it's broken up, it doesn't seem like as much to digest.
Yeah, in fact, there is actually a lot of content on this page, but because you get a nice little, bam in the middle, that was pretty loud.
Wow.
You get very excited. It means that the user is going to keep on engaging and they're going to keep on scrolling and reading some more about it. And of course, you get some more Spidey Pig at the back here. And also notice that we have very clear calls to action along the way, so you can actually see what you want the user to do. You want to see how the Money Smarts team can help. You want to have someone interact with the calculator, which we'll get to in a minute. And then, the very first thing on the page, other than a visual, is 3 primary ways in which you want users to interact on the site. So very, very strategic there. And we actually got to incorporate the debt monster in a really cool way. Look at those tentacles.
That is so true.
Okay.
Okay, quick question. So you mentioned, that it's all about the user experience in this website. The difference of the old and the new, it's pretty, it's eye-catching, it's clean. Would you, if you were to summarize maybe the main principles of user experience, would you have a list of things that you would call your top priorities when you're improving user experience?
Absolutely. So the first thing sounds the most obvious, but it is also something that people have a little bit of trouble with. And that is really fully understanding the user is really the very first step. And so, of course, we've done research projects before. We've actually talked to students and found out what they needed and then incorporated their needs into the sites. Things along those lines. So that's the very first thing. And of course, there are other techniques as well. We do things like write personas, for the website. So creating fictional versions of your different user types. So whether that is an undergraduate student who is from an underprivileged background, and then someone who might be on a full ride scholarship. That might also be a graduate student, an international student. They all have different needs. So understanding what their needs are and empathizing with them is really probably the very first thing. And then the rest of it, there are lots of industry best practices that I could go into ad nauseum. I also teach on this subject, so you don't want to get me started too much. But really what it comes down to is really getting out of the user's way and getting them to what they need. So whether that is making sure that you make the right choices of labels in navigation that are going to be intuitive and not use vague words like resources, which we did on your old site.
Yes, we did.
I hate the word resources, by the way. I hope none of you are offended by that, but it's just vague and nonsense, and don't use it. And there are lots of other things as well. So making sure that you're giving people the content that they want in the priority order in which it is most important, of course. That also translates to design as well. So you'll notice that the old website had a lot more going on in it. There was a lot more kind of visual noise, so to speak. And this is very, very clean. You mentioned that. And that's very intentional. We've done away with over-ornamentation on the web at Indiana University. It's something that we've done kind of overall, and we're slowly chipping away at it website by website. But it means that ornamentation for ornamentation's sake has no purpose. And so the debt monster is communicating something that's there for a reason. We want to make sure that people can understand that they can defeat the debt monster. So that's not extraneous. But, on indiana.edu, for example, before it got redesigned a few years ago, there were swirls, like graphical swirls in the navigation, and it made the words harder to read. And before I got my hands on it, I was like, why? Why is it like this? Essentially, anything that is frivolous or unnecessary should be done away with because it distracts users pretty much at every turn. So like I said, I could go on a lot more, but those are kind of the most high-level things. And I have some more kind of recommendations at the end of the presentation about user experience best practices as well. So you'll get some more of that in just a minute.
Great.
Yeah, of course. And so probably the biggest thing that we want to talk about today.
Yeah, and this has actually been something that we've been working on for years, and it's been conversations that have gone on in a lot of our different campuses, where could we design a calculator to help students estimate their cost of college that would be the most reflective and, I guess, user intuitive in terms of how they interact with it, to the standpoint where students can interact with their costs, kind of update things as they go along, and just kind of see the effects of what their different choices are. And the way we looked at it too is if anybody files their taxes with TurboTax and you type in numbers and all of a sudden you see that needle go one way or go the other way, that was kind of the inspiration or kind of what was in our heads. Can we just do something where when a person enters in something or changes a decision, can they in real time see the impact of that decision on their bottom dollar line things?
That was eloquently said.
Thank you. I am nothing if not eloquent. So our goals with this was basically we wanted to break down a student's cost of college into a monthly budget. We also have a semester. You'll see this too. We have the semester look at it as well, but also to help narrow it down to this is what it's going to cost for your kid to go to college on a month-to-month basis. Students can pick and choose what expenses are relevant to them. So again, when it comes to personal finance, we want to make sure we're just keeping it as personal as possible. We don't want to tell you what you're going to be spending or what you have to spend money on. You tell us what you're going to be spending money on. And then see in real time the impact of a financial decision. So like I just said, just see what happens the moment you enter in that dollar amount. And so then two, we had 3 different offices that were really working on this. So number one, our office, the Office of Financial Literacy, really it was us and then with our financial aid at both our IUPUI campuses and our Bloomington campuses really talking about this and figuring out, okay, what makes the most sense here? What does this need to do for us so that we can feel comfortable putting it out there and having it be a tool for students that are coming in or for students that are already here.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the Office of the Bursar, because they actually own all of those numbers. And it turns out it's always more complicated than you expect it's going to be when you're calculating tuition. I have a feeling that many of you know that, but it's always true whenever you're working on something like this. And then, of course, with iCommunications, we were responsible, of course, for the user experience of it. And then also really, I guess we had that great brainstorming session where we had to figure out like what questions are we going to ask, what's actually important, and then what is a little too far into the weeds when it comes to asking questions. And I think our initial list was something like 85 different ways in which you could break down student costs. And we were like, hold up, this is way too much, right? This is just way too complicated. We want to make sure that it doesn't take 3 hours to fill out.
Yeah, and for those that like Excel, you're about to see a slide that's just going to make you feel all nice and cozy on the inside. So we'll get to that here in a second.
Oh, yeah. And we had some other products that were out there for Indiana University. You had a budget calculator that no longer works because it's on your old website.
Yep.
And one of our other units at Indiana University had one as well. But this is where we are now. Just kidding. This is where I started. And so obviously I don't need you guys to read all of that information, but this was my very first stab at all of the questions that we needed to ask students in order to accurately calculate all of their costs, all 61 lines. And this was not even everything, right? This was like my very first pass. And so you can see here that, there were different options and all of the radio boxes and drop downs and sliders, and you'll see what that actually looks like once we get into it, but then all of the logic as well, so showing and hiding different questions based on previous selections and all that kind of stuff. So this is what this could look like.
Yep.
It's not what it does look like, but you can imagine.
I think if I were designing this, if I were designing this, this is what I would make it look like. And I would be totally comfortable with this. I'd be like, this is much simpler than anything that we have out there right now. It gets the point across.
Mm-hmm. It's a regular form, right? It's like just like anything else.
There's nothing unappealing about it. There's nothing appealing about it. It just exists and people would be totally fine with how it looks.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. But we decided that we wanted to be a little bit better, hopefully, I hope, and also more engaging as well. And so this is where we landed. And
I think it's important to note
it's the same questions from this screen to this screen, and you'll notice that this just feels more effortless. There are already selections that are made. You can change them, certainly, but it's just filling out a sentence. It's almost like Mad Libs. And once you get those brief selections put into place. You click get started and we'll go to the next screen, or you'll go to the next view. We're not going to actually interact with it just yet because we have a little bit more background to share with you first. So a little bit more about the approach that we took. Really, it came down to this. So there are two sides of the spectrum, and essentially they all have the same kind of vertical line. So it can be detailed and it can be simple. It can be precise. It can be an estimate. It can be poor UX. It can be good UX. So on the left, those are all synonyms in a way. It can be detailed, it can be precise, and it can have a poor user experience. Those three are the same, essentially, when it comes to execution. Or it can be simple, but it can be an estimation, and it can be good user experience. And so really what we needed to decide was where along this single spectrum for all of these three variables did we want to fall? And really, where do you think we landed? Probably somewhere like 75% to the right.
Yeah, so if you can see the hand that's there on the screen right now, like basically if you drew a line just up right there, that's where we fell. Because one of the things we were confident in too is that, yeah, while we're going to err on the side of estimating, which I think is important, like we can't be 100% accurate with anybody's total cost because they're not going to know their total costs. What we can do as good of a job in directing them and educating them to the point where they can make as good a guess as possible, to the point where they can feel more confident in what that final estimation number is.
Absolutely, yeah. And certainly I mean, detail is great, but it also means a really poor user experience because if people are just going to take forever to fill it out, and then the amount of people that it's going to help is going to be much less. So the other thing that we did that really helped here was to display national state averages for costs whenever they were possible that are then of course editable. So these are things like, average costs of rent and utilities and various things, so that people are not staring at a bunch of zeros. Right? They have a starting point. It's just like when you're, if you remember back in school, when you're opening up a brand new blank Word document and you just stare at it. It's the same thing as like deer in headlights. But instead, this is almost as if you have an outline ready to go for you, and you just kind of adjust and tinker with it from there, which makes it a lot more approachable in a lot of ways. And then we also made sure that it defaulted to cost of attendance, which was super important for our financial aid folks at the university. Do you want to?
Yeah, so I mean, basically, when we put this out the first go around, our numbers were a little bit different than cost of attendance because we were trying to get students to see, we wanted to try and, default them towards a little bit less than cost of attendance. But then financial aid came back to us and said, no, for consistency purposes across all campuses, it makes sense for us to default to cost of attendance and have students navigate from there.
Yeah, make adjustments from there.
And so we're not going to argue with that. We think that's a totally reasonable thing to do. And so ultimately now, if you go to the calculator, you will see that it defaults to the cost of attendance based on which campus that you are at.
Yeah, which campus they choose, right? Yep. Yeah. And then this was really key as well. So there are plenty of costs that are just not relevant for certain people. So, if you don't have a car on campus, you don't have to worry about things like gas or insurance or a car payment. It's probably my favorite example. But making sure that anything that they don't need to see, they're not going to see. And then anything that starts becoming relevant to them based on the selections that they make, then we'll have those fields of information appear. So hope everyone wants to see it live. So
this is the first time we get to show it live in a presentation.
I know, because the last time we presented this, it was still in its kind of, what was it? It was basically a beta. It wasn't totally ready. So you'll notice here that from this original screenshot that we showed, there is a little bit of content above the calculation piece, which we decided was necessary so that people can understand what they're going to be seeing before they see it. So I'm just going to show kind of the different options here. Undergrad versus grad students, we account for all of those. We want to make sure that people can choose both in-state and out-of-state tuition and attending, and then here all of the campuses at Indiana University. There's a really good reason why this was extremely complicated for us to implement, because there is a lot of nuance going on here. Costs depend based on the amount of credit hours someone is taking, and then in person, online, in person and online. Those are all variables that impact cost. And then there are lots of different costs based on program as well. And so if you're just doing something that's not one of these, you go to all other programs.
And those do change based on what campus you choose.
Oh yeah, that's great. So like for IEPY, for example, they have different programs, of course. There is also some really kind of cool behind the scenes things that are going on here. So if I select out of state and do IU East, for example, IU East has what's called a reciprocity agreement with some counties in Ohio. And so if they live in any of these Ohio counties and I say yes, then they get the in-state tuition rate. If they say no, then they still get the out-of-state tuition rate. But notice that field only appeared when it became relevant based on the selections that someone was making. So let's do, what did you say? In-state IUPUI?
Let's do it.
Okay, get started. So now we have a breakdown of the tuition costs. And you'll notice that on the right-hand side here, we have also things like books and supplies, room and board, transportation, personal, and there are already numbers here, right? So again, you're not looking at a bunch of zeros. You're looking at numbers to get started with. And so if we go and we page through to books and supplies, still you'll notice that we have, books, course-specific supplies, so we can make adjustments here. Do you see that slider moving? And then monthly budget on the right-hand side. So that's real-time adjusting the numbers, just like Phil, you mentioned with the kind of TurboTax model, that as you make selections and as you make decisions, then all of those costs get reflected. So room and board, same kind of thing. So for on campus, we have housing here, we have meal plans. Notice that when we choose off campus, we have lots of different types of fields. So on campus is one field, off campus is another. Say, we can say 625, or we also can type in this field here. So say it's 800, you can type in this, which is really nice. And then you can say what utilities you're paying for. A lot of people don't have to pay for utilities, but if you do, then you check them. And then you'll notice that the field for the water bill appears and then it disappears. So let's check all of these. And then notice that there are already costs that are filled in for these different things. So unchecking them will also change the numbers and have it go down a little bit, which is pretty cool. And then, things like restaurants and groceries, etc. We have an area for transportation. So this defaults to no for a car, but if it's yes, then of course you have all of these additional things, and look how much our costs are going up, right? So hopefully you're not bringing a car to campus, especially if you're a freshman. And then this next page is probably my favorite because this is a lot of information here. This is a pretty long list. The list was much longer when we started.
We started with 41 categories.
Oh my God. And so some of these are filled out. Certainly, people are going to be spending money on clothing and travel, and they probably will have to have a social life, right? And so we also have some more information here. So things like personal care, that's like haircuts and hair care products. So making sure that people kind of understand what falls into those different categories. And so the study abroad number, for example, is 0 because most of the time people won't be studying abroad. But when they are, making sure to factor all of that into their lives and their budgets as well. So things like hobbies and family expenses, gifts, pets, all of those different types of things. And this is also a way for us to prompt them to start thinking about, oh, do I have other expenses that I haven't thought about? Even if they are zeroed out, they see them in this list here. And then the last field is this funding section. So we don't have any, lists of funding at the moment, but this is where things get really fun, right? So if you are, let's say that someone works in the dining hall, right? So you add dining here and you say that I'm, making $9 an hour and I'm
Which for the record, minimum wage in Indiana University is $10.15 an hour.
Oh, I should change that. Good plan. Woo. Oh. Numeric characters. I'll have to round it down to 10. 10. Okay. So 15 hours a week, and we'll add that, right? So you'll notice that funding all of a sudden goes up. What if I change this to 20 hours a week? You can see that the amount of money that I need to come up with goes down. And so again, the impact of those decisions kind of happens right in front of your eyes. And so of course we have things for scholarships and we have financial aid, all of those different types of things. So say for example that we were, we were receiving financial aid per semester. All of those different types of things can be factored in as well. And then finally, we get to, once, say for example, that we had spent all of our time here and we got to our summary page, this breaks down all of the different aspects that the student has chosen, and they can see kind of the breakdown of their costs. And then they can print this and they can bring this into the Money Smarts and be able to talk to someone about it and figure out, well, okay, it sounds like I have a big gap here. You know, what is it that I need to do in order to figure this out? What else? Did I miss anything?
That's really great. There's a couple questions, if you don't mind, Kate and Phil,
That
came up about the calculator.
Yeah.
So are you guys able to track the students who are using the calculator, and if you've had used any way to see how that's affecting the loan request amounts? And also, I think there's also a question around if there's a payment plan for that monthly budget.
So this isn't tied directly to like financial aid or the bursar in terms of trying to put together a payment plan. That's not a bad idea, because again, this is an estimation. So for us to say that this is hard and fast, like what it will cost somebody to come to college, that's not the purpose of the tool. The purpose of the tool is basically just to give people the idea of what it's going to look like,
what their expectations should be.
Yeah, and then on the other end, what was the other part? I apologize.
Oh, like if there's this might answer your question. There was a question around the payment plan. If IU offers a payment plan for that monthly budget to be able.
So, I think I answered that one. What was the first question? Sorry.
If you're able to track any of the use, like the use of the calculator, and if there's any feedback on that.
So as of now, we have not done that. We haven't put that in play. When we started talking about this,
it's only been live since October.
Yeah,
right.
Since when we talked about it originally, the idea was, what we could have students do would be to what we call CAS authenticate. So CAS is just our login system, and be able to tie it to their financial aid accounts. But that proved to be much more taxing and much more involved than we probably had the capacity to do at that time. So that's part of the pipe dream. What we ultimately decided to do is we wanted to make sure that we got this out as soon as we possibly could, so that this could be a tool that students could use as they're making financial decisions in college. And so what we always refer to this as is just version 1.0.
Yeah, we might be making adjustments in the future.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like this is something, again, going back to my earlier point, like we're not going to stay stagnant with this stuff.
Yeah,
we're going to keep progressing it, knowing that like whatever we build is not the final version of whatever it is we build.
Yeah, of course. The other thing to note, and I don't have the numbers to pull up on a slide, but in terms of the performance of the website and the calculator might be something good to know. I don't know if you looked at your analytics recently?
The analytic that I'm always aware of is the average visit duration on our website.
Sure.
But I also know how many, actually, I do know how many page views we have on our website.
So from October 2016 to 17, October to March of 2016 to 17, and then the same time that it's been live from October of last year to right around now. So before, the number of page views were around 33,000, and the bounce rate was 62%. So for anyone who doesn't know or is not familiar with Google Analytics, bounce rate means that someone has come to the website and not interacted with anything and they bounce, right? So 62%, it's not amazing, but it's not great, right? So that means that over half of the people who come to the website, to the old website, were leaving without interacting. Now, the bounce rate is 1.1%. Only 1% of users who get to this website don't stick around, which means that 99% of the people who come here are spending time on the site. So that's a really, really good indicator that people are using it. And of course, most of the interactions that are happening are within the calculator. I need to do a little bit more breakdown of numbers to find out how much time people are spending in the calculator itself, because I think that would, of course, be helpful for us to know. We need to peel apart the data a little bit more, but it means that people are actually using it. Oh, and the other thing is that the number of page views went from 33,000 to now 364,000.
In less than a year.
In less than a year. So I feel like it's working.
And the other thing to note too is, and I pulled this stat up, the average visit duration on our website right now is 3 minutes and 16 seconds. And if anybody just sits back and thinks about that and asks yourself, well, how long do I normally spend on a website? It's usually just click, read whatever it is there, like read headlines, and then click off. Nothing there is interesting. With our website, we've built it now to the point where people are staying for more than 3 minutes.
Which is super impressive.
Which is mind-boggling to me because I don't remember the last time I spent more than 3 minutes on a website.
Yeah, absolutely. Other questions about the calculator?
Yeah, I think that people are really impressed by that 1% bounce rate.
I am too. I did not know that one. I didn't know that
one. So there's a question around how do you promote it to students, and also there was a prior question around whether this is tied to any kind of requirement, class, or anything that students need to use the calculator as part of it.
Yes. So great couple questions. So a couple things there with marketing. So obviously we work with communications about this stuff. You saw the posters earlier that we do the bus reps. We have relationships with various departments throughout the schools in Indiana University, so we can come in, talk to them about the program. We definitely have a very close relationship with our first year experiences program, as well as our alumni association. So we're, I hate saying this, we're catching them as they're coming in the door. We're catching them as they're going out the door. We do things to try and target sophomores and juniors, but obviously, as I think a lot of us know, like systems are in place to better to reach out to those first year students and the seniors. What we do know though, is that if we reach out to those first year students, it's getting them that awareness that if they need this resource as they go through their collegiate career, it's going to help, or they're definitely going to get there. Now, the other piece about this is there a requirement behind this. So last year, actually this is the first year we put it in place, our office developed our own financial education platform called Money Smarts U. So basically, we segmented it out so that there's a course for high school students, a course for first year students, sophomores, juniors, seniors, students considering
specialty programs, things like dentistry.
Yep. Yeah. So so we've got 7 courses that are out there. There are going to be 14 coming the fall of this year, and then another 7 more next year. And as a part of a requirement, all first year students at Indiana University are required to do the first year course. I'm glad you know this. the first year Money Smarts U program. And so when they come in the door, they get the messaging about that kind of stuff. As part of the assignment, one of the things they have to do is they have to go to the calculator, interact with it, and just play around with it to the point where they can kind of build their own budget. They don't have to turn anything in. We make that clear. It's just as a reference point for them to use it to help them understand what their college costs are going to be moving forward. So certainly some of our website traffic comes from that, not all of it, but I think that's a really good question to note. We do tie it into other things that we do, so that way we can get students to come and take advantage of the resources we've built for them.
Yeah, of course. And then, of course, we also do things like link to it from various other Indiana University websites as well. So if you go to the main, IU Bloomington website, indiana.edu, or the main IUPUI website, iupui.edu, when we talk about costs and financial aid, we always make sure to mention Money Smarts because it's a great resource for students so that they can fully understand the financial picture.
Yeah. More questions. I have a feeling we should probably do questions and we'll send out the rest of the slides.
Oh, yeah, sure. Do we want to,
we've got the best practice to take home with you. We could send this out.
Yeah, that's true.
We'll make this available.
Yeah, that sounds good.
But Kate has a great Game of Thrones reference in there too.
I do. I really do.
So, Jimena, more questions.
There were the questions more in regards to what you mentioned at the beginning about IU's 17% debt reduction since 2012. So some people are wondering how do you define that reduction, if it was in specific students taking less than what they've been offered, or if it's more at an aggregate level. And then also along the lines of that topic, how do you balance that fine line of informing students about the financial implications of their decisions while still making sure that you're not scaring them away from?
So, yeah, both great questions. So the first one, the debt. Literally, it was just the amount of debt cumulative debt that our students took out in 2012 versus the amount of cumulative debt that we have now in 2017. So it's just an apples to apples comparison of what debt once was and what debt currently is. And that's it. And then that number has gone down by 17% since 2012. In regards to scaring students off, I feel lucky to be in the position that I'm in because I think I have the university's trust. And if any university administrator is on this call currently and wants to talk about this otherwise, just let me know. But I feel like it's our duty to, if students go through the numbers, they're like, I can't afford IU. I'm not about to make somebody or try and convince somebody that, no, don't worry about the numbers, you should come here anyway. Because I think that hurts the institution more than it actually helps them. We want students to come here, don't get me wrong. Like I want to help find a way for students to get to Indiana University if this is where they really want to go. But if the numbers don't add up, I think a lot of us in the financial wellness world know this. If the numbers don't add up, don't try and force the numbers to do something that they can't do. We want students to get an education, and we don't want students to, go into huge piles of debt as a result of it. We want to make sure that they're doing the thing that's going to benefit them the most in the long term.
Well, and a lot of it is starting the conversation. If they come to you and say, hey, I'm having trouble, a lot of the times there might be other avenues that they can explore for things like scholarships and, other, grants. Maybe they haven't filled their FAFSA out, and they just don't know what that means. Right. And so you can direct them to financial aid so that they can go down all those avenues. It's just a way to have the door be open to those conversations.
And I should also point out too, I never tell a student, no, you can't come here. Like that is never part of it. But the meeting always goes that basically as a result of the numbers, this is what your situation looks like. You can try and find additional dollars. If it doesn't work, then this may not be the best, the best option for you. And I take this from personal experience. I will be honest. This is being recorded, so I will say this. I got offered a full ride to Purdue University. I turned it down. And if anybody knows the state of Indiana's relationship between Indiana University and Purdue University, I turned it down because I'm from Bloomington. And I didn't want to go to Purdue, despite the fact that I applied there. That was one of the dumbest financial decisions I ever made in my life. I wish I could go back, and I wish I could have gone to Purdue because I ended up paying a lot of debt as a result of it. And I want to make sure that as part of my duty to the university and to this field, that I'm doing everything I possibly can to help students make informed financial decisions to prevent them from making the dumb decisions and often irrational ones that I made a while back.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Phil and Kate, for answering those questions. And I think in the interest of time, we'll probably wrap it up. And maybe one quick question, just like a yes or no, just to, because I think that a lot of people may be wondering this. Do you think that your developer will share this technology, or do you think that somehow this may be becoming available for other institutions?
It is extraordinarily custom to Indiana University, for better or worse, at the moment.
Yeah.
But Phil, do you have anything else to say about that?
I will say the idea at one point was to try and figure out ways to help other universities make this possible. What we do know is that IU Communications, as Kate said at the beginning, exists to help Indiana University. That is not to say that it couldn't work for other institutions, but what we would have to do is we'd have to figure out a way that the other institution would have the technological support in order to do it, because Indiana University can't be the ones that host that. Mm-hmm. So what I would say with that is, if you're interested, we can certainly approach that conversation and see where it goes from there. I don't want to say yes to anything, but I also don't want to say no to anything else. It's a matter of just exploring and see what might be possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
The other thing to keep in mind is that, we've done a lot of the hard work in terms of here's, this is what the logic would look like for things like showing and hiding fields and the types of questions you would want. behind the scenes, that's all numbers that's specific to your own universities. Your tuition is different, of course, than Indiana University's tuition. So if you want to steal the design of this, go for it and partner with, the communications or marketing or IT, units on your own particular campus or university, and they may be able to get this in a way that would work for you all.
What I will do too. Oops, I keep going the wrong way with this.
You do.
Yeah, well, I think it's, I personally am getting a lot of different ideas, even though maybe I won't have the resources to implement something as comprehensive as what you guys have put up. But just having some of the ideas and the principles behind what you've done is, I think, pretty helpful, at least for me personally in my position. And hopefully that was helpful for other people as well. And again, I want to thank you, Phil and Kate. There's their contact information if you have any questions. But HIFWA will be following up with some other answers that might have not been answered. And please stay tuned for next webinar. We'll be sending out information and announcing dates and times for our next webinar soon. And don't forget to register for the summit, and the early bird registration deadline is also coming up March 30th. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you, Phil and Kate, again.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks to everyone for taking part in this. This is fantastic.
Yeah, and really do reach out if you have any questions, because I'm always happy to answer.
You can't see us, but we're not scary people. So.
I can attest to that there.
Awesome. Well, have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep.